In the forests of Siberia, dozens of women vanished. For nearly 20 years, their bodies were discovered along remote roads outside a quiet Russian city. Police searched desperately for a killer, someone who seemed to understand investigations, someone who left almost no evidence behind. But the truth was more disturbing than anyone imagined. Because the man responsible was not hiding from the police. He was the police. His name was Mikhail Popkov, a former officer who would later confess to more than 80 murders. In Russia, he became known as the Angarsk maniac. But before the world knew him as a monster, people knew him by a very different name. This story takes place in Angarsk, a quiet industrial city in Siberia, Russia. In the 1990s, life there wasn't easy. The Soviet Union had just collapsed. Crime was rising. People were struggling just to survive. And then, something even darker began to happen. Women started disappearing. At first, it didn't seem like a pattern. A missing person here, another there. But over time, the cases began to add up. Bodies were discovered in forests outside the city. Some showed signs of extreme violence. Fear spread quickly. People started locking their doors earlier. Women avoided walking alone at night. There was a serial killer out there, and no one knew who it was. At the same time, there was a man who looked completely ordinary. His name was Mikhail Popkov. He was a police officer. Not just any officer, he worked in traffic police. He had authority, a uniform, a police car. To everyone around him, he seemed normal. He had a family, a job, a routine life. But behind that normal image, there was something else, something no one could see. Popkov used his position in a way that made him almost invisible. Late at night, he would drive around the city, sometimes in uniform, sometimes not. He looked for women walking alone. Then he would stop, offer them a ride. And this is what made him so dangerous. He didn't need to force anyone into the car. Many of his victims got in willingly because they trusted him. He was a police officer, someone who was supposed to protect them. But instead of taking them home, he drove them out of the city into isolated areas, forests, empty roads, places where no one would hear them. For years, he repeated this pattern again and again, and still, no one caught him. So how did this go on for so long? Part of the answer lies in the time period. The 1990s in Russia were chaotic. Police systems were overwhelmed. Resources were limited. Many cases weren't properly connected. Victims came from different backgrounds. Some cases were dismissed or not taken seriously enough, and Popkov blended in perfectly. He was part of the system. In fact, it's believed that at times he may have even been near investigations related to his own crimes. Imagine that, a killer helping search for victims that he himself had murdered. What makes this case even more disturbing is how normal his life appeared. By day, Popkov was just another man, a husband, a coworker. Nothing about him raised serious suspicion for years. Meanwhile, at night, he was committing some of the most brutal crimes in the region. This kind of double life is something seen in other serial killers. But here, it was even more dangerous, because his job gave him power and trust. Two things he used against his victims. For a long time, it seemed like the case would never be solved, but everything changed years later. Back in the early 2000s, investigators had collected DNA evidence from crime scenes. At the time, technology and databases were limited, so the evidence just sat there until 2012. Investigators reopened the case and began comparing DNA samples again. This time, they found a match. The DNA pointed to one man, Mikhail Popkov. When he was arrested, the truth finally came out. During interrogation, Popkov confessed, not to one or two crimes, but to dozens. Eventually, he admitted to more than 90 murders. Most of his victims were women. The scale of what he had done shocked the entire country. He became known as the Angarsk maniac, one of the most prolific serial killers in modern history. Today, Mikhail Popkov is serving life in prison. But what makes this story truly terrifying is not just what he did. It's how easily he was trusted. A uniform, a badge, a calm voice in the dark. How many times do we feel safe just because someone looks like they're supposed to protect us? For nearly 2 decades, the people of Angarsk were afraid of a monster. They locked their doors, they looked over their shoulders, they warned each other about the danger in the streets. But the real danger was never hiding in the shadows. He didn't run. He didn't hide. He drove through the city every night, passing under streetlights, seen by everyone, and no one knew. Because the monster they were looking for was the one they trusted the most. Wearing a uniform,